Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock, and this evening we warmly welcome the family of Private Arthur Bragg, whose story will be told shortly by Flying Officer Sarah Welsh from the Royal Australian Air Force, who is a member of Private Bragg's family. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Service Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Arthur Bragg. Arthur Bragg was born on the 19th of July, 1893, in Maxville, a small town on the Nambucca River in New South Wales. One of 7 children born to dairy farmer William Bragg and his wife Sarah, he received an education at Lower Nambucca Primary School. A keen sportsman, he was a member of the Maxwell Rifle Club, awarded the Marksman Certificate for the year in 1911. At the outbreak of the First World War, he was employed as a carpenter. Bragg enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 12th of January 1915. Assigned to the reinforcements for the 1st Battalion, after a period of training, he embarked from Sydney on board the troop ship Ceramic at the end of June 1915. He joined his unit at the Gallipoli Peninsula on the 5th of August. The next day, he was to take part in his first and only battle of the war, near a place called Lone Pine. The attack was planned as part of a diversion to cover Allied units attacking positions at Chinook Bear and Hill 971. In the early hours of the morning on the 6th of August 1915, the 1st Battalion charged Turkish defensive positions at Lone Pine. Upon reaching the Turkish lines, advancing troops were met with trenches that had been covered by pine logs, offering protection to the enemy and severely hindering the Australian advance. Troops were forced to break through the log roofs, often engaging the enemy in hand-to-hand combat. Private William Stenning, who was also in the attack at Lone Pine, later described the battle. The scene in the trenches by this time was an awful one. We were here, there and everywhere dodging bombs and in some cases catching them as they came in and throwing them back before they had time to explode. The dead in the trenches was beginning to pile up. Each time we repulsed the Turks, but with what loss? There were poor chaps who had had their heads blown off, split in two, and sides blown out and otherwise horribly mutilated. The scene was one I shall never forget to the end of my days. Though the main objective was taken within 20 minutes, 4 days of intense fighting followed, at a cost of more than 2,000 Australian casualties. It was at some point during this attack that Private Arthur Bragg went missing. His fate remained unknown for several weeks, by which time the Red Cross began investigating what happened to him. His comrade, Private Alfred Sims, wrote, "He was next to me in our trench on August 6, when the order was given to advance. He gave me a leg up and I pulled him over the parapet. We charged across the first Turkish trench and that was the last I saw of him. As we retained their trenches, Bragg, if alive, should have been brought in." His mother was later informed that he had been killed in action when his body was recovered from the battlefield. Newspapers in Australia reported his death saying, "He was a manly fellow and held in high esteem by those who knew him." Before leaving, in conversation with some of his friends, he said he was going to the front believing it was his duty. He nobly fell while fighting for the Empire and in the cause of righteousness. Arthur Bragg was 22 years old. His name is listed on the honour roll to my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Arthur Bragg, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please be upstanding for the reading of the oath and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.